Senate Republicans say that this Senate trial for Donald Trump's impeachment, when it happens, if it happens, and it's gonna happen, it should be limited in certain ways. But the arguments that they're making publicly about how it should be limited are not necessarily matching up with what they're saying behind closed doors. So Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, today rejected demands by Democrats to call 4 White House officials as witnesses, all of whom have firsthand knowledge of Mr. Trump's dealings with Ukraine, including Mick Mulvaney, the White House chief of staff, and John Bolton, the former national security advisor. So look, we're gonna get into why he's rejecting that, which is ridiculous and hypocritical and a big lie itself. But just on its face, we have finished months of Donald Trump and his defenders saying, this is all secondhand information, this is third-hand information. Where are the people who actually know what's going on? And then they shut the door so you can't talk to them. What logical reason would you have from blocking these people from testifying? I know you're gonna give a reason, but first let's talk about logic. Why would we not want to know, especially if, in your view, Donald Trump has done nothing wrong? The call was perfect. Why wouldn't you want Mick Mulvaney and John Bolton, the people who are actually involved in this thing, to come forward and speak? It is effectively indefensible, but let's let Mitch McConnell attempt to defend it. Here is his first argument.
It's not the Senate's job to leap into the breach and search desperately for ways to get the guilty. That would hardly be impartial justice. The fact that my colleague is already desperate to sign up the Senate for new fact-finding, which House Democrats themselves were too impatient to see through, well, that suggests something to me. It suggests that even Democrats who do not like this president are beginning to realize how dramatically insufficient the House's rushed process has been.
We live in such unserious times where you just read what you want to be true. It doesn't matter what's actually true. Yeah, but I believe all the Democrats think that they've got nothing. You really think that? You can think that you think they have nothing, but the idea that they all secretly agree with you, perhaps in hipster coffee shops, they're talking about how they've got nothing. But there, he said, it's not our job to do new fact finding, to jump into the breach and try to find out what he did wrong. Well, first of all, you are conducting a trial. The idea that at a trial, new witnesses being called is some sort of weird thing that goes too far, well, that's gonna dramatically shake up our legal system in America. The idea that if you can't prove that someone did it before witnesses testify, that you've got no case, that I think will come as new information to most Americans. It's a ridiculous argument. But it's an intentionally ridiculous argument. He doesn't need to come up with arguments that make sense, that attempt to convince everyone else, because it's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to reassure his base that he's gonna protect Donald Trump and try to get past this as quickly as he can. But there is a little bit more, so let's go to the next bit of Mitch McConnell.
If House Democrats' case is this deficient, this thin, the answer is not for the judge and jury to cure it over here in the Senate. The answer is the House should not impeach on this basis in the first place. But if the House plows ahead, if this ends up here in the Senate, we certainly do not need jurors to start brainstorming witness lists for prosecution.
There are just so many lies that, despite the fact that I've prepared for this, I'm sure that I'm gonna forget a few. So we don't need jurors brainstorming witnesses. Okay. This isn't like we had a massive whiteboard and we were trying to come up with just who could we bring in? These are the most obvious people intimately involved with most details of the story. It is not some weird leap to bring them in. He said earlier that the House was just too impatient to talk to these people. That is simply a lie. John Bolton might be of his own accord refusing to testify, but other people that are involved in this with first-hand information, including Mick Mulvaney, they were blocked from testifying. Donald Trump wouldn't allow it to happen. What a bold-faced lie to say that the White House wasn't interested in that the House wasn't interested in talking to these people. They would have talked to everybody up to and including Donald Trump if he had not blocked every bit of documentation and witness testimony that he possibly could. And so after we saw that, after it was a publicly stated defense against the impeachment inquiry, that he was not gonna allow these people to testify, Mitch McConnell now goes on the Senate floor and lies to the entire country about the entire process. But it goes beyond this, because he's saying it's not up to us to investigate this thing. It's literally what their obligation is. Their responsibility is to be the trial that looks into this. They had better talk to as many witnesses as possible, but I'm wasting time talking about their constitutional obligations. They have no interest in that. Most people have moved on from the Constitution. But in terms of the actual strategy, he says there, it's a waste of time. We don't need to do it because the House was supposed to do that. That's what he's saying publicly. That's what he's saying on the Senate floor. But we also know from the Wall Street Journal talking to anonymous Republican senators, that is not what the argument is whatsoever. What they're saying behind closed doors is we don't want this thing to take any longer than it needs to, because the longer it goes, the more it will damage us. That's the exact opposite of what they're saying in public. They're saying that this will only help him get reelected. But behind closed doors, they're trying to lobby the president to limit this to as short a trial as possible. He doesn't want to. He wants to stretch it out for the absurd reason that he thinks it will give him time to expose the whistleblower. He's literally the last person in this country that actually cares about this. Maybe him and Jeanine Pirro, that's about it. But he is willing to extend this thing for that reason. Now, Mitch McConnell, behind closed doors, is dealing with Republican senators that are saying that any new witness testimony, especially from people who are blocked from testifying in the House, could be incredibly damaging. Not just to Donald Trump, but to their re-election efforts. Now, Mitch McConnell, of course, is not going to come out and say that, but it is on us in the media to make sure that people understand the actual motivations that are going on right now. Mitch McConnell can give a speech, he can lie to the American people, but for people who are actually acquiring this information, it's on us to make sure that people know what's going forward in advance of the Senate trial. And with the vote apparently coming up tomorrow in the House, it could be starting sooner rather than later. But it also might be brief because they have no interest in people finding out what was actually going on. Thanks for watching the Damage Report. What if you could take control of your internet experience for a cup of coffee a month? Well, if you head to nordvpn.com/TYT, you'll be able to connect up to 6 devices to NordVPN's military-grade encryption for $349 a month. If you go now, they'll even throw in 4 free months and NordPass, the new password manager app. Go now.